Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de how I finally finished Elden Ring and whether this means I'll stop playing the game now. I know my wifey would really like to know the answer to this question, so perhaps I'll answer it, just in case, on the off chance she's watching. Hey, XenPuck here. So obviously I've been playing Elden Ring so much that I can't remember a time when I didn't have this game. I mean, first I'd like to thank my friend David for telling me about it. He likes these action-adventure games more than me, and frankly, I thought most of these just looks frustratingly hard, and I'm not even talking specifically about soulsborne's games, okay, that I've seen him play. This was like years ago when, even then, I was like, oh, I think I'm too old and my reaction time too crappy for this style of hack and slash. Alas, I was bored, and he said this Elden Ring thing is all the rage, and now 250 hours later, I would have to agree. It is totally awesome. I agree. I know I set my game clocks as 250 hours or so, but to be frank, I've probably spent at least the same amount of time reading about Elden Ring, looking up where the hidden bosses are, and watching builds on YouTube, even though I'm never going to replicate them because I don't even play PvP at all, like, never played once. I even refuse to do the quest in-game that requires me to invade other players' worlds. Maybe I'll think about doing that the next run-through just because I want to be a completionist, right? So anyway, now that I am finally done, I'd like to relate a few more observations and comments on the endgame, what to do afterwards, and whether I'm compelled to play on, aka whether wifey will have to suffer through listening to the pew-pew sound effects of my spell missing as she walks by my office. Yes, my office is probably more of a man cave than an office, but I do have my Mac in there, so obviously then it counts as an office, because everybody knows you can't really game on a Mac, right? Oh, comment, like, and sub, or whatever. I don't really care, honestly. I'll be great regardless of my non-existent social media audience size, right? Thank God I didn't come of age in this silly social media era. So, number one, I really want to comment on the final boss, right? Trying to not spoil anything. Well, I don't think it's a big surprise that last bosses in these types of games have FAs too, right? So I'm going to try to describe both phases without actually, drawing a picture or a graphic, because I don't know how to do any of that fancy YouTube stuff anyway. Phase 1. Ooh, yeah, this character looks badass. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like the strong silent type, right? No speeches, no addressing you of any kind. It just goes to town on you, like the Terminator, right? I'm using the pronoun it here because I'm not sure whether the more defined gender pronouns would actually be a spoiler, right? So why not try to be safer? So its design actually reminds me of someone who's transformed or ascended again and again to the point where it barely resembles a human being anymore, right? Kind of what I'd imagine like Super Saiyan 10 would be like. Oh, I also have to mention the music during this battle. It's nostalgically epic to the point that when I saw other players, first get to this boss, they immediately recognized the audible cue and they go, wait, is this the last boss? I mean, I love that fact, right? I had the same thought because even the audio cue can indicate this, right? It's the kind of detail in design that when it works, it just seamlessly works. It's like magical, right? So, now that I mentioned how much I enjoyed Phase 1, because I want to mention Phase 2 started off. When that started, my reaction was more like, WTF is that? Okay? Seriously, it looks like I can't say it, but it looks like a Ian and Austin Powers type of movie. Anyway, it looks unique and otherworldly, and its entire moveset is holy Christly annoyingly long range. I mean, I was getting outranged, and I play as a cowardly mage, right? It's hard to appreciate what a curiosity this Phase 2 looks like when I'm getting blasted in the face with laser beams coming from like 3 separate directions. But okay, I might like the design as much, not as much as Phase 1, but I gotta tell you, still felt great when I finally beat this thing, right? So a job well done, even though I thought it was slightly more well done for Phase 1 of the final boss. Point number 2, right? So hundreds of hours in, I want to mention the main lesson that I finally learned only at the end of the game, especially because I, finally fought a few bosses that I couldn't simply outrange and run from as a mage, right? My style of just letting my summon tank the damage while I stay safely far away and pepper the boss with projectiles worked against, I would say, like 85% of the boss. And maybe another 5% could be taken care of just by me sniping at them on the world map and then running so far away that they de-aggroed off of me, okay? Alas, near the end of the game, this game plan was just no longer working, right? Either because my summons weren't tanky enough to live through the encounter, or the bosses did so much AoE that there's hardly anywhere that I can run from where I'm both safe but can still actually inflict any amount of damage. So I had to learn this real main lesson that it's easier to just go hit people in the belly or the back or the tail if they're a dragon and has a tail. I mean, I found it kind of absurd that I do the same damage to a dragon on their belly versus their tail, but hey, whatever works, right? It seems larger bosses have a bit of an issue reacting to the player if the player avatar is sticking to them like glue, right? So even I, as the cowardly mage, can get in some good series of magical melee hits at point blank range. I mean, it just feels weird to be going in as a mage, you know, because I didn't spec too much into health points and can't really wear the heaviest of armors, but since fighting at range wasn't working, I had to try something new, right? I will mention that fighting larger bosses, and frankly all bosses that are significantly bigger than my character, right? At the belly and the back range just feels, well, not as pretty as fighting at range, right? Generally enjoy the graphics and designs of the bosses in this game, but when you're fighting a beautiful dragon, staring at its tail clipping a bit through your character while the camera is trying to swerve around while also possibly blocking you being all-wieldy to the point where I can barely see myself, I mean, it just doesn't compare if I was fighting the same encounter from mid to long distance, right? Watching the dragon roar or flap its majestic wings while turning into right lightning storms or whatever. Yeah, no contest there. So finally, now that I've finished the game, I believe wifey breathed a sigh of relief thinking that I'm totally done. Hang on a second, okay? I think I forgot to mention to her this game has at least 4 other endings that I didn't get yet, right? I'm definitely gonna have to play through a few more times. Plus there's a few quests that I missed and a few that have multiple outcomes and I need to do the opposite of what I did this time too, right? Though maybe she shouldn't worry as much because I pretty much at this point know where all the items that I want are, right? I've already beaten all the bosses, so I have a game plan for all of them. Even if I'm gonna stop being a cowardly mage this time, right? And use that last lesson that I learned of just go in. And see how that applies to all the earlier bosses, right? And the next playthrough won't take nearly as long as 250 hours, and the one after that probably even shorter, right? I mean, I'm assuming I'll still be interested in the game by then. And also maybe I'll try PvP or at least some kind of online co-op, because isn't that the ultimate life extender for games these days, beating up on your friends, right? In conclusion, to my beautiful wifey, at least you won't have to keep hearing the constant pew-pew sounds of my mage's comet sharp projectiles anymore, right? Because my avatar is no longer even a mage. Instead, I'll be using a longhorn that blows out a barrage of soapy but also holy bubbles. Maybe I'll also use a harp bow on the offhand to complete that whole musician style, right? But since I had to increase my faith to use the holy bubbles, I've also decided to maybe just goof around and use some lightning spells, or maybe some blood flame blade, or maybe even some eye laser beams that causes madness. Oh my god, my build is already getting unfocused again, Jesus. But isn't that why, at the end of the day, I love Elden Ring, right? As soon as I decided how I want to try to play the game the next time, I remember, oh my god, there's like 10 other ways that I would also like to try that looks cool. I don't think for me, Elden Ring will ever really totally end until probably Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, so yeah. Or my other option was until wifey decides to start playing Elden Ring. Obviously, then I will cede my throne that I have achieved as Elden Lord to her. Cheers, à la prochaine.